people would say things when I'd come into aid stations. They're like, "You look so light on your feet. You look like you haven't even been out here running for 2 days." And I was like, I'm just so happy." I was always smiling and high-fiving people and just chit-chatting about whatever. I was just so happy the whole time. Everyone told me, they're like, "You're gonna hit a low, you're gonna cry, you're gonna feel super happy, but you're also gonna feel really terrible. It's gonna be, like, the lowest of the lows." And I, like, really never hit a low. Like, I was pretty consistently
Yeah.
happy the whole time.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Longer Miles podcast, presented by the Warrior Trail Foundation. Our guest today is Amber Bouge, a Team Warrior Trail athlete, U.S. Navy veteran, mom, wife, nurse, and there's probably a few other titles I'm leaving out. From the moment I first met Amber, I knew she was special, but her recent performance at the Mammoth 200 solidified that idea. Joined today by my co-host Brittany Peterson, we discuss Amber's journey to Mammoth and her trip around the Eastern Sierras. I had the privilege of witnessing her journey to the finish and the way she interacted with her parents and aunt and the joy she was spreading around the course. Her perpetual smile was infectious and her overall fitness was evident. Amber is a perfect example when a multidimensional approach to training is used to accommodate a busy schedule. She leveraged her hard work and determination into her WTF coaching scholarship and truly maximized the opportunity. Through the unselfish support of the trail running community as a whole, our Warrior Trail team, and her coach, Brittany, we provide a military-like structure to veterans where they feel comfortable and a part of something bigger than themselves. Amber demonstrated this, and her journey was the real success. The result of earning that buckle was just the icing on the cake. Okay, we are live with Amber Bouge and my lovely co-host, Brittany Peterson. Good evening.
Hey.
Okay, so we've got Amber here to talk about her recent completion of the Mammoth 200. And Brittany is going to start off with some great questions about your background in running.
Yeah, so Amber, we were kind of talking and we've been working together. So I coach Amber through the Warrior Trail Foundation. And I feel like it is important because I don't even know this, but tell us the hybrid, because I'm curious of one, your military background experience, and then two, is there a link or no? It doesn't matter if either way, but and then your link to how did you get into trail running?
Okay. So I played soccer growing up in high school. Didn't really run. I did track to get in shape for soccer. I wasn't very good at it. But my dad has always been a trail runner and he would always take us out in the dirt. He doesn't like to run on the trails. He just boondocks. He's like, let's go up that hill and over that fence and around that tree. So we were always outside doing that. So I think that's kind of what planted the roots, for being out in nature and moving fast over ground. But then joining the military, didn't run a lot then either. I mean, you do your like mile and a half you have to do twice a year, which is not very impressive. And I actually taught physical fitness remedial program in the military. So if you failed, you got to work out with me 3 times a week, which was usually like a lot of weights, a lot of like quick runs, hill intervals, stuff like that. People didn't really like it.
It sounds like an incentive to me.
You would have liked it. Most people did not. There's throw up a couple. Anyways, got out. What did I do when I got out? I did amateur ballroom traveling dance company for a while, and then I got into CrossFit, and then I got into rock climbing. But I always kind of ran, not a lot. I didn't track my mileage or my time or anything, but I always liked running. I liked running on the trails, but I would run on the streets. It didn't really matter. I just always liked to run a little bit in the back for just fun. But then what was it? COVID hit and my husband and I had been in a rock slide accident. So I kind of backed off from rock climbing and I just started running more and more and then more and then more. And then we bought a treadmill and it just became obsessive, you could say. So it went from running maybe, I don't know, 10 to 15 miles a week. And then all of a sudden you're pushing 40 to 50 miles a week. But that kind of brought me into that. And then you just fall into the community and you get addicted to the long runs and the people and the, pushing yourself to go farther, go longer. So just that's what happened. My first ultra was in, I think, 2019.
Okay.
Amber, tell us what you did in the military
I was a medic in the Navy, and then I was also a search and rescue swimmer.
and how long were you in?
9 years.
9 years. And why did you
9
leave?
years. Because it was time to shit or get off the pot. I did my 2 enlistments, and then it was either like re-up or get out. Yeah.
Do you ever
And
regret
also
leaving?
I was also due to rotate back to a deployable billet, which I didn't really wanna do.
Oh,
I had a
great.
son. Yeah, and I didn't wanna deploy, so that was part of it too. Do I regret it? So I got out and I was on the verge a year later of signing up for the reserves. I even had an appointment to go in and sign the paperwork, and then I just ghosted the guy, which is not very. But yeah, no, I miss it, and you seek out that camaraderie and that, the team environment, and you seek it out in other ways. Like I'm trying, running is a good way to kind of you get that discipline, you get the people you doing hard things together. There's other ways to kind of like recreate it. I feel
Yeah,
like
for
this is
sure.
kind of that. Yeah.
You just gave me an idea. We could add a feature to these podcasts called This Is Your Life, where we bring that recruiter on now and he gets to ask you questions. Like, that would be awesome.
It's cool hearing though, like, because we'll talk more about some of these topics later on here, but it's cool hearing and like piecing the or putting the pieces together where it's like a lot more makes sense. And I kind of love that like evolution into where you are now. And so I guess tell us why Mammoth and like how did you find yourself looking at a goal of a 200-mile race?
So I never wanted to do a 200 because it seemed ridiculous and a little overkill. And I had done 3 100s and I felt happy with that. I love doing a 50 miler. You wake up, you run, you're home in bed that night, you know? It's so nice. But even the hundreds are a little bit more taxing. But anyways, so then we used to live in Mammoth for a while. My whole family were very like mountain outdoorsy active people. We spent a lot of time up in Mammoth. We had a house up there for a while. So then when I heard talk that Tim was gonna start this 200 up there, I was like, this could be like my ticket into the woods. And I had done the Mammoth Trail Fest with him, which was like a 3-day trail fest running event that he does. And I thought he did a really good job with the race. And it's fun to run up in those mountains, the Sierras. So yeah, that kind of put the bug in my ear, and then I moved to Utah recently and became friends with a local guy here who does a lot of 200s, and he was just always talking about them, and he started dragging me to some of them to kinda help pace or crew with him, and so then I started seeing how people at 200s are, like, even more connected and friendly and helpful. I mean, like, when you're running PK, it's still kind of competitive and everyone is you just don't have like those like bonding moments and connections where that you do in a 200 is different. And I started to see some of that. And I mean, going up there with Izzy, who everyone knows the lady. And it was really cool just to see her like, oh, this is my friend, this person, this person, this person. And just to see like everyone was so excited to see each other, even though they haven't ran together or seen each other in years. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I kind of want to be a part of that.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a difference between the 200 crowd and probably all the others, right? I mean,
Hmm.
and even the 100, there's a pretty close family in the hundreds, but even there, especially for the faster people, you know, they're done in 24 or 30 hours. And I think where the bonding happens in the hundreds is in the back of the pack. For me, as
Yeah.
long as I possibly can. But yeah, it definitely is a different experience from that standpoint. And you've run some hundreds, right?
3.
Yeah. So wouldn't you say this is a completely different sport almost?
It's yeah, in a lot of ways. It's not just running, there's so much more strategy that goes into it, and you said, the bonding that happens, it's more like trauma bonding that you're experiencing with these people because I ran with some of the same people for 3 days, like, we spent hours each day together, versus in the 100, you may see somebody, and then as soon as you slow down a little bit, you don't see them again, ever, because then they finish and go home.
Yeah, for sure. Tell
Yeah,
us a little
very
bit about
different though.
your training approach because when we spoke about this beforehand, it was mentioned, what was it titled? Unorthodox training.
Correct that. It was non-traditional or
Okay.
less traditional. So let me add because it's so let me give the context for everybody else. Amber and I recapped afterwards where it's like, this is I've done some longer FKTs, but I haven't done a 200. My coaching partner has done a bunch of them. And so I've put together and it's like, I'm learning the ways of how do you prepare for a 200? And what I'm learning is like, there's so many different ways of doing it. And so it's the whole thing of, like maybe what everyone like looks to is like put in a lot of volume and a lot of long runs and really practice that, which that's something that just life obligations and family and just everything else like that was really hard for Amber to do, but maybe that like ultimately that was a good thing because it's not needed, and the risk potentially is extremely high. And so I learned a ton from Amber because a key was something that she'll talk about here.
Yeah, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So I like to like always kind of dabble in races, like, oh, in 3 weeks there's a 50K, sign up. There's a 100 miler in 4 months, sign up. So then my family left San Diego and we moved into a trailer and we traveled the US for a year. And I barely ran because I don't like being alone in the mountains that I don't know. So, and you can only do laps around trailer parks for, not trailer parks, campgrounds for so long. So really backed off on running. Then we moved to Utah and I started picking it back up again, building volume for about 3 months. And then that's when I was like, I'm going to do this 200-mile race. So part of it was that we didn't have a lot of time to prep for it. I think we only had like a 4 month window from the time I told you to when it was going to happen. And during that time, we decided to travel again for another 2 months where we went back on the road and camped for 2 months. So I had to get kind of creative. I did a lot of work in a weight vest. Sometimes if my kids wanted to go on a bike ride, I would just put on my weight vest and walk behind them. If we were going to the grocery store, I would be like, okay, I'm going to run to the grocery store. I'll meet you there. We'll shop together and then I'm going to run home afterwards. And you can get an easy like 4 or 5 miles doing that. And then I do a lot of strength training. Since I was in high school, I've always lifted. I love lifting and feeling strong and capable and having big muscles. So that's something like no matter what we were doing, it's so easy to keep training for weights. We always carried weights and bands and a TRX no matter where we went. So I think having a solid musculoskeleton build, having a lot of muscles really helped hold my body together during the race. Because I walked away, no injuries, nothing hurt. The day after my race, my blisters hurt actually, but like nothing was achy or burning I didn't even get swollen. I didn't lose any toenails. It was weird. I was so right. You were
Yeah.
there, Chris. I was like I was limping a little bit because my muscles were tight. I don't know. It's strange. Yeah, but it wasn't, yeah, I don't think it was a very traditional buildup. My longest run might have been Trans Rocky,
You
but
had with the sweeping, like you had some good quality, like where it mattered, and that was huge. But then it was the whole thing of like when life couldn't be fully focused on, like, I have to hit this training metric. You had such a beautiful foundation that I learned so much from that of like that strength. And my coaching partner and I talk about this of like going in healthy is way more important than going in with X amount of miles on your legs. In fact, it's probably a lot more detrimental to have X amount of miles, if you're doing that, if that's the only thing you're looking at.
yeah. I really tried not to pay attention to what other people were running and how they were
Mhm.
training because I knew my training probably wasn't ideal as far as like volume building. So I tried to go in naive because then I didn't want it to mess with my head. Yeah.
Let's talk about your headspace because I got to witness the back half of your race, and it was really amazing to watch you walk into each of those aid stations with such a smile on your face and in a good headspace. The only thing I think you ever complained about was the blisters, and we can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. But I mean, share with us how you managed that, what your plan was going in, and what your end result was.
Okay. So I didn't have a time goal for the race because I didn't want to set a goal and not maintain that pace to hit that goal and then get really bummed. So instead, I made a goal just to go in and be so grateful and happy to be out there and doing this. I was like, "You are not gonna have any negative thoughts. You're just gonna, enjoy it and try and embrace it and just laugh it off if it starts to suck." And I did it. I felt like that was, like, the one part of the race, well, actually, I feel like I nailed a lot of good parts of the race, but that was, like, one part where I was just, like, even when my parents drove me crazy a little bit because they were my crew, my mom and my dad and my aunt were my only crew, well, until Chris filled in at the end, and they did like, one day I was like, "Hey, guys, get me an apple fritter," and they showed up with a bear claw. I'm like, "This is not an apple fritter, guys." I was still like, "Oh, this is still really awesome, though. It's the wrong donut, but I'm still super stoked to have it." Just to, like, be happy, and people would say things when I'd come into aid stations, they're like, "You look so light on your feet, you look like you haven't even been out here running for 2 days," and I was like, "I'm just so happy," I was always smiling and high-fiving people and just chit-chatting about whatever, yeah, I was just so happy the whole time. I Everyone told me, they're like, "You're gonna hit a low, you're gonna cry, you're gonna feel super happy, but you're also gonna feel really terrible, it's gonna be, like, the lowest of the lows," and I, like, really never hit a low. Like, I was pretty consistently happy the whole time. I don't know. It was just that was my goal and I did it.
You might be the first person I ever witnessed running a 200 that can say that about the whole experience because I mean, even Jeff, even many of the elite runners I've talked to, Jesse Haynes, they talk about these low periods they get to. Maybe that is more prevalent for them because they're turning themselves completely inside out the whole
Yeah.
time,
Yeah,
you
I was,
know?
like,
But
a very comfortable pace.
yeah,
So, yeah,
but
maybe that has something to do with it too.
even the ones around you who were managing a comfortable pace. I witnessed you like at what was it, a June Lake, sort of boosting up some other people around you. So I would say maybe that what I witnessed is the nurse coming out in you or the medic coming out in you like, you know, you you weren't necessarily telling them it was going to be all good, but just you conveying your confidence was helping them.
Yeah, like, hopefully it was kinda contagious. Yeah. Not the nurse part when I was popping the blisters with the same needle for 3 days.
No.
Chris
No,
Chris
that's
tried to take it from me. And when I wasn't popping it, I just wore it on the front of my pack right here. I just pinned it back.
yeah, not probably less than ideal.
So
As I
with that
showed you, I travel with hypodermic needles specifically for that purpose. If I ever get stopped, people probably think I'm a druggie, but,
So with the mindset, like you set that intention before and like had that was kind of the thread with your whole race plan and everything to like just like celebrate where you're at. Like, did you feel like you had to battle thoughts to like keep focused on that headspace, or you just, because like Chris and I are on over here, like way on the other side of the spectrum of like, oh man, we get enough time alone out on the trail, things start hurting or whatever. It's just like that's so much opportunity for all of the negative to come in and then take over. Like, did you battle that at all? Or like, do you feel like you've kind of figured out how to block those and like just carry on? Or what was your experience with that?
I never felt like that. I have felt like that in races, and I've actually DNF'd because I've, like, gotten so into my head. But one of my girlfriends told me, who's done a bunch of 200s, she said, "If something comes up, like an ache or a pain or a thought, first, like, acknowledge it, like, 'Oh, I feel you,' or 'There you are,' you know, acknowledge it, and then you address it. 'Okay, why are you there? My knee hurts.' 'There you are, knee. Why are you hurting?' 'Oh, maybe I fell down or something.'" And then the 3rd step is just to realize you can't do much about it. And she's like, "You just gotta let it go at that point. You gave it the time and the thought that it deserves. Maybe work on it when you get to the next aid station." So I was always kinda, like, playing around with those, like, ideas in my head. I'd get something. I never got nauseous there. Maybe I think I got a headache at one point. You're like, "My head hurts. I see you. There you are." You know? "I don't know why you hurt. Sorry." And then you just kinda, like, let it go.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think in my experience, my best experiences in 200s was when I was able to be present and actually convince myself that whatever's hurting right now, it's okay because in a little while something else is going to hurt and I won't
Yeah,
even think about this, you know?
yeah.
I can
Aches and
remember
pains, they
doing
come and they go and
Bigfoot.
they're replaced.
Yeah, I can remember doing Bigfoot 200 and like 5 different things hurt throughout the race and at the end, none of them hurt. So
Yeah. Crazy.
it's just if you're out there long enough, you can either heal yourself or it just goes away because something else pops up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Then let's talk about the race itself, I guess. Well, I mean, maybe we talk a little bit more about like strategy going in with nutrition or a sleep plan, and then we can go into like how did that play out, or like just what were your favorite takeaways from the Mammoth course?
So my friend Ben, he told me just eat and eat and eat. And if you don't want to eat, just eat some more. He said, as long as you can eat and walk and drink water, there's no reason to stop. So I was eating so much. Even when I didn't want to eat, I was like, let's just keep eating. Let's just keep eating. And I never got nauseous. My stomach never turned. I never threw up. Never, like at one point I was like, man, I am so tired of eating. But it just kept going down. I don't know. Sleep was kind of weird because so many people have different opinions on sleep. And I'm like, I don't know how, like, do you just lay on the ground? Do you sleep in an aid station? When am I gonna get tired? I had no idea. So I had like a rough plan because Mammoth only has 4 sleep stations. Um, and they were very distinct points throughout the race. So in my head, I was like, well, I guess when I get there, I'll sleep because the next aid station isn't for 40 miles, you know? And my parents were coming to Mammoth, but they're like 70. They weren't coming to all the aid stations. They were just like kind of hitting one in the morning, one in the evening. So we get to the first aid station to sleep, the sleep station, and it was like midnight on the first night. I'm like, I can't sleep. Like there's no way. But then the next aid station, when I mapped it out, the next sleep station, I wasn't gonna hit till probably like 1 or 2 in the afternoon the next day, which is way too long to stay awake. So at that point, I was just like flying by the seat of my pants. I don't like my parents ended up coming out that morning and I crawled in the back of their car and slept. And then, I think I slept in one aid station at like 2 in the morning somewhere, but it was freezing because it was outside and there was no heater. It had just like a tent wall. I don't know. It was, it worked. Whatever I did, I took 2 90-minute naps and 2 30-minute naps, and it was fine. And they were always in a car or in a cot. I was too nervous to lay down in the dirt and nap. I thought like a crazy squirrel was gonna come out and attack me or something. But the sleep stations didn't seem ideal. Like some of them were just in the aid station next to the food area. And there was people walking and cheering and changing. And it was just kind of maybe if you had earplugs and a helmet, a sound machine, yeah. But I mean, it worked for me. I know, Chris, you had a hard time sleeping,
Yeah,
but
I found it very challenging. I
yeah,
did I agree
and it
with
was
you.
bright.
I think that would be my only constructive criticism for the race directors is that the sleep stations need to be addressed. I thought everything else was fantastic in all honesty, but that definitely was a shortfall and I think there's a learning curve to that. I mean, even the races that have been going on for a very long time still get that wrong quite a bit. And, it's, you have to understand there's a significant difference between what somebody in the front and middle of the pack are going to experience or need at a sleep station and those at the back of the pack. And frankly, I would argue those at the back of the pack probably need more resources than everybody else. I mean, you got through with what sounds like 2 hours of total sleep. I generally try to get like 6 to 8 hours of sleep in a race, but I'm usually out a day longer than you were too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
makes a difference, maybe a day and a half even. So yeah, I think, it's an interesting challenge. It's always a challenge to try to figure out, navigate sleep, nutrition, and everything else. So, but you handled it very well and your plan worked.
Yeah, yeah. It worked so well. I'm kinda nervous to do another 200 because I just feel like no other 200 will play out so perfectly. And it'll just, anything else, it can't like, you can't beat this last one. It just everything was so perfect. I don't know. It
Well,
was
then you need to
such a good
sign up for
experience.
5 of them next year so that we can see all all
No.
different rows.
The only thing I was really bummed about during the race, and it's out of their control, but a storm rolled in at the very end, and we climbed up into Mammoth Mountain, probably at like mile 210. We're up at Mammoth Mountain, and it was 7 p.m. on the third day. And we got to the top, and it was just whiteout conditions, super windy, snow. Like the temps were dropping. Couldn't the flags all got blown off the course? You couldn't see anything. I'm like watching my phone, just like each step, trying to make sure I go in the right direction towards this little hut you have to check in at. You get in the hut and everyone's just in there. Nobody wants to go back outside. People are coming in all the shelve like, I just got lost for an hour up there. So we ended up sitting in that hut for a couple hours and it felt like the race kind of ended there. It just felt like, I'm done. But then eventually a group of us got together and we made a plan to stick together, just like get off the mountain together, as a group. And it worked. But then once I got down, you kind of had to slow trot back to the village another 5 miles. But by the time I crossed the finish line, it just felt like it had already ended on the top of the mountain. So it was kind of anticlimactic for me in a way to come across the line. I don't know. Because I was also expecting to come across that line hours before when I did, before that storm rolled in.
Yeah, I know. I was hanging out at the finish line waiting for you so I could start my drive home. I'm like, come on.
Why is she just sitting there? She's hurt. She's not moving.
But I
But
mean,
other people got rerouted where they couldn't do that part, which maybe
Yeah.
would be a relief at the time and then a disappointment later.
We were one of the last people they let head up.
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah. And then they closed off that route.
Amber, did
Yeah.
you ever think maybe this is you? Because didn't the same thing happen at Broken Arrow?
Oh yeah, Broken Arrow,
Yeah.
second second loop, my dad calls me because he's camping 10 miles down the road and he's like, "Hey Amber, it's snowing at my campsite." I was like, "What?" Because we were in these trees and you couldn't see anything. As soon as I got in the clearing, it was just solid gray clouds. And then my dad called again and he's like, my dad is like a wannabe geologist, I guess. What is it called? The people who track the weather? Weatherman. He's a wannabe weatherman. He's like, so it's gonna start thundering in about
Geologists study the earth.
yeah,
Meteorologist.
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 Yeah. He's like, "In 12 minutes, it's gonna start thundering where you're at and lightning." I was like,
Wow.
"What?" And, like, sure as shit, it, like, rolls in just as he was expecting. So I get to the aid station and everyone's like, "Get inside the hut, like, there's imminent lightning strikes," and it was. As soon as we got in there, it was a snow lightning storm, and then they ended up canceling the race, and there was lightning and a couple inches of snow, and it was just kind of and then you had to walk off the mountain, but super fun adventure, but yeah.
It is the year of weird weather. We just
Yeah.
conducted our Warrior
Yeah.
Trail 200 Dark Sky 220 last week or a week and a half ago. I went back when I picked that week and looked 20-year history and didn't see any, huge anomalies. And it was when I started and did the first 24 hours with the people doing the 220, just to get some miles and to go out and experience that part of it with them. It was 24 degrees and snowing.
Ooh.
The morning we had 2.5 inches of snow on the ground and it was real feel of like 14. It was crazy. I
Yikes.
was like, how does this happen? It's the beginning of November. It doesn't normally, this is at 1,500, 2,000 feet. It doesn't normally snow in Pennsylvania, or certainly even if it snows, it doesn't get that cold beginning of November in Pennsylvania ever. But, some term where they call it a polar vortex, we didn't even know what that was 20 years ago.
Man, that's pretty bad luck.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like that happened a lot though, like canyons. Okay. It was like raining and freezing cold in California in April. Yeah, like Cape Town just happened and one of the races was canceled because of wind. Like
Yeah.
just crazy
Mhm.
stuff. Maybe
You
that
were
Yeah.
happens every year, but particularly this year.
you got bad weather.
Cocodona had snow, right?
Yeah,
Cocodona was crazy.
I got rained on for 40 hours straight
Rain.
at Cocodona. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even take rain gear because I was going to the Arizona desert, right? Brittany, you
Yeah,
got you got bad weather at Run Rabbit Run, right?
well, that's right. Yeah, freaks. Well, not freak storm. I think it was fairly predicted, but it came.
Yeah, it's been a rough year.
Which I guess it goes right back to the whole like, a 200 is a big time adventure of you just don't know what you're going to get, especially for that first experience. But then ultra running in general, there's so many other little experiences that can come with it, like weather, like stomachs. I mean, just yeah, all the things.
Yeah. When I ran Broken Arrow, I don't bring anything in my pack. I don't this is, like, so lame. I don't bring in a blanket, gloves, because usually I just do my 2 loops and I'm off the mountain pretty fast. Not pretty fast, pretty average, actually. But so when I got caught in that snowstorm, I had nothing, and I go into this tent and people around me are pulling out emergency blankets and down jackets and I have literally what I'm wearing, which is a t-shirt and shorts, nothing. Somebody thankfully was kind enough to give me a blanket to wrap up in. But then on the flip side, at the Mammoth, their gear requirement list was pretty extensive. Like I didn't even know how I was gonna get it all in my pack, but I ended up using almost all of it, and you needed it. If you didn't have it, it would have been really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm
well,
like really thankful they required that.
it's good when that works out, and it's also great when you use everything in your pack because then you don't feel like you carried it 200 miles for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Chris is working on that still.
Chris.
I know all about it.
Would you say like any takeaways or any like aha moments about Mammoth or like things you would do differently based on your experience?
If I would like to run it again next year. I partly love the fact that it was inaugural year because it's rare that you get in on something the first time. So I do kind of want to run it again next year. I don't They haven't released a date yet though, but I would push a little bit more. This year I was just very casual, was finished in the mid pack, I think. I don't know. But it just
12th. She finished 12th.
But it was easy. I didn't wanna stress myself out. So I just kept it casual. Like, when I would roll into the aid stations, sometimes I would stay, like, an hour, 45 minutes if I was, like, eating and changing and all this jazz. I would put more stuff in more drop bags. One morning, I rolled in and I didn't have anything in that drop bag, but it was gonna be a warm day and all I had was nighttime running clothes on. So I ended up running with no hat, in my sports bra with some, like, undershorts that I had on under my fleece pants, and I got sunburnt. It was a long morning to the next aid station. So being more prepared like that would be really just having all kinds of different options in different bags. I would definitely keep the whiskey shot on the mountain at the end. That was a good call. What else would I do different? I don't know. I would just, yeah, push myself a little bit more, see if I could handle it, but I still would wanna, yeah, that would probably be about it.
That's cool.
Awesome. Well, last question I have for you, Amber, is what role do you think, being partnered with the Warrior Trail Foundation and being one of our coached athletes helped you in preparing for this, or do you just carry with you on your runs? I mean, we had that great team experience at Trans Rockies, and it just felt like everything after that just flowed really well.
Yeah, that was it's so nice being around like-minded people that kind of get your background, and a lot of civilians don't really understand a lot of this stuff that you've gone through and that you've done and sacrificed and experienced. That was definitely like a high that I rode into the race. My dad is prior military too, so I kinda get that from him a little bit, and it was nice having him on my crew 'cause he's good about cracking the whip and, keeping me accountable, handling my business, "Go handle your business." But when I first moved to Utah, like, right when I was, like, starting to link up with you guys, I was coming off of not running for a year after having run really hard for about 4 years. So I did need a little bit of that accountability and that push, and linking up with you was one of the most amazing things too. Like, we've done a lot together and talked about a lot of stuff, and you've always pop up where we end up at a lot of the same places. I love helping you and you helping me, and it's yeah, that's always, like, super cool. I don't know. Had I not linked up with you guys, I don't think I would have ever ran the 200. I think I don't know. Definitely not the 200, maybe smaller, more stuff that didn't scare me as much and I didn't feel as supported going into, probably. Yeah,
You certainly
yeah.
have our unending support, and we're honored and thrilled to have you as part of Warrior Trail Foundation team. And I know Brittany, not speaking for her, but I know she loves coaching you. So
I do.
Maybe not the last couple weeks. I stepped off a curb kinda funky and rolled like, did something to an ankle. So she keeps checking in, and I'm like, "We can't get it to work." Nothing's A lot of hiking and lifting going on the last couple weeks.
But again,
yeah,
it's like that foundation is still there. We'll get that ankle back in line and then you will get back.
what and
Yeah.
do you think? So I'm not actually familiar. What happened to your ankle?
I was just stepping off the curb and kind of collapsed on it wrong. I wasn't paying attention. I was stepping sideways. Like, you can run 218 miles and I was fine, and then I'm crossing the street, you know,
I
I
suppose.
was talking to someone and looking sideways
Yeah,
and it just landed, which, like, I am bummed about it, but at the same time, I feel like me personally, I can't run 24/7. Like, I need to ebb and flow a little bit. I did want to take the holiday season and back off a little bit, and I wanted to train more, like strength train and gain a lot of the muscle I had lost. So it's almost like this was
So
supposed to
you
happen in a
so your
way.
brain took over and stepped off the curb incorrectly for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm still hiking a lot, like, I'm, loving the hiking, and
Yeah.
I'm getting so ripped too. You guys wouldn't.
It is an interesting thing, I think, as we close out this podcast, one thing that we can certainly discuss in the future is, and a topic I'd really love to know a lot more about is what's recovery from a 200 look like? Because, much like you, I can remember my first 200 that I successfully ran, Moab 240, I was broken for a month. But then as I did, Bigfoot a year later, I felt like I was good to go back to running in like 4 or 5 days. And it was interesting, part of that people were saying, people talk about like Jeff is a big proponent of diet and anti-inflammatory things and, things along those paths. Maybe I'm sure a big part of it in your situation is your strength and your resilience, to injury, but I don't think anybody really knows yet, right? And it
No.
I think it'll take a while and some real dedicated studies to really understand what it looks like. I've been saying for the last couple years, I think it'd be fantastic if we did blood work on a number of athletes, like 6 weeks out, like 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out, during race, before, during, and after race, and then like 2, 4, 6 out. Right. And just looked at all these inflammatory markers and everything else to see what the impacts really are for
Yeah.
the whole pack, like the front, the middle, and the back of the pack, because I'm sure the lasting impact on the back of the pack is probably less, even though they're out there longer.
Yeah. I mean, it varies too based off of male, female, your age, what
Yeah,
kind of resilience you've built up to that point, and how people we all so many people were like, "Don't run for an entire month," just chill. And then, like, the guy, Jimmy, who won, he was out running a week later. He lives here in the same town as me. And then that made me feel bad. I was like, "Oh, shit, I should be out running too." But it's just so personal. But you also, like, need time for your brain, almost like my brain needed to wrap around what was happening and that needed to recover totally separate from my body.
for sure.
I would think too that it's like depending on how the race actually went too. Like you mentioned those factors of gender and age and all that, but it's like nutrition in race. If you actually nourished your body well, then maybe like you came out of it without even swelling, like that's amazing. Versus
Yeah,
someone that had GI issues and didn't eat for X amount of hours or they were vomiting and now it's like their body is just getting trashed in a different way. That's probably
yeah,
gonna leave a bit more of a mess to clean up
yeah.
afterwards.
I've seen pictures of people's feet after these races, and they are gnarly looking.
Yeah.
And the next day after my race, I was like, "My feet look pretty normal. Did
That's
I do
that's awesome.
something wrong? Should I ran faster?" Like, do your feet get messed up, Chris?
No, they actually don't. I've only ever had 2 blisters in all my 200 attempts and completions, and they've always been on my left pinky toe. But since I switched to Topos and Injinjis and Dr. Tom's foot powder, no issues. So now I am also more diligent about cleaning my feet, changing socks. I actually believe that the biggest thing you can do is just cleaning your feet and changing your socks. And if you do that, you're eliminating the abrasives.
Mhm.
And that solves 90% of the problem. And then I also go into a race like Mammoth. I went there with 8 pairs of new topos, none of which had more than 30 miles on them. So
Yeah, they're very nice looking.
my plan is fresh shoes, fresh socks, clean feet every 25 to 35 miles. And it works. And it might be excessive, but I also don't have wrecked feet and I still have all my toenails and everything too. So I think that's, one thing they taught us in the military was taking care of our feet,
Take care of your feet.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a combat multiplier.
Yeah, I changed my socks probably 6 times, but I washed off my feet once and the water wasn't even dirty, and then I never washed them off again. But my feet never felt dirty. Like, at Tahoe, I see people washing their feet, and
Yeah.
their feet get, like, that dusty,
Oh,
fine,
yeah.
but I didn't get that in Mammoth. I
No,
never, and I don't know.
it's different soil for sure.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But so I just felt like changing socks was fine for me.
That pumice is definitely different than whatever is over in Tahoe. I don't know what it is, but it's
Yeah.
just a dust bowl.
Yep.
Well, Amber, I really want to thank you for joining us for take two of your
I
uh,
wanna talk about it.
in discussing your 12th place finish at Mammoth 200 and your very first 200. And Brittany, thank you so much for joining us this evening and asking all those intelligent questions that you do.
I just have to say, Amber is a joy, and I am just so grateful that I get to be inspired by you and get to work with you.
Thank you for listening, and please consider supporting our mission and sharing this with your friends and centers of influence. You can support us through our website at warriortrail.org or at our new Warrior Trail Foundation Patreon page, where you'll discover brand discounts, partnerships, articles, and mission supporting research. A $22 a month donation helps provide funding for our coaching scholarships and ultimately impacts the veteran suicide and self harm epidemic that plagues this nation. Our community based effort is the only way to move the needle and reduce the over 8,000 veteran suicides that occur annually. On behalf of our Warrior Trail athletes and coaches, thank you.